genre.
Welcome back to The Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who, The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Nick Jimenez.
I'm Scott Corelli.
And I'm Cass Fredrickson.
Today on the show, we'll be discussing The Rescue, the First Doctor's 12th story.
So The Rescue originally aired as the first story of 1965. It's only two parts, airing on the 2nd of January and the 9th of January, 1965. So this is part of the second series of Doctor Who, and it was recorded as the first production block of series 2. Because Planet of Giants and Dalek Invasion of Earth were both held over from Series 1. So it was the third one to air, but was the first one. It was the third one to air because they filmed the other two with Series 1, but pushed them to Series 2. And then this is actually kind of the start of Series 2 in terms of, as far as like production was concerned. As discussed in our Dalek Invasion of Earth episode, producer Verity Lambert was forced to put her original plan for replacing Susan with the wise beyond her years freedom fighter Jenny aside when contract negotiations with the other three leads put Doctor Who's renewal into question. Once Hartnell, Russell, and Hill all agreed to new contract terms for Series 2, a new replacement companion would instead need to be introduced in the follow-up story to Dalek Invasion of Earth, with David Whittaker announcing his departure as story editor for the series to be replaced by the Reign of Terror's Dennis Spooner. Whittaker agreed to write a 2-part story that would introduce the new companion. Some names that were tossed around were Valerie, Millie, Tanny, Lucky, and finally settling on Vicki. In September of 1964, auditions for the new companion culminated with a screen test between Maureen O'Brien and an actress named Denise Upson, with O'Brien ultimately winning the part. She was told to keep her casting a secret until a formal announcement was made by the BBC, but was surprised when a number of reporters descended upon her Liverpool home one morning. O'Brien subsequently discovered that her parents had naively mentioned the good news to a friend who, of course, sold the story to the newspapers.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And you can't trust anybody over in the UK. There, anything they can sell to the newspapers. Anyway. So that's how that happened. And this was sort of meant to be, Whittaker's kind of swan song for the show of like, okay, I'm leaving. Here's a new companion. Adios. And of course, he would be back many times afterwards to write future stories. But this was the end of his sort of like time as a full-time employee of the show. We get this little 2-part story. The only other story at this point I think that Whittaker had written was the other 2-parter, which was the sort of like Inside the Dalek episode where they were like Edge of Destruction, where they were like in the TARDIS and trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
The like bottle episode. And this does actually feel very similar in a lot of ways, in terms of like being such a small story, and the only purpose of which is really just to introduce this new companion, Vicki. Cass, what are your feelings about Vicki as a companion, just in general? And how do you feel about this introductory story?
I like Vicki. I don't know that I'm crazy about her introduction in this, but I do like her in general. I think that she, especially the next one, like the next story we're covering is actually one of my favorite First Doctor stories. So I think that like this one is really just like, okay, so we're literally just introducing you to her as a concept, and then we're just going to take it from there. So I don't know that it does her a service, but I think it's an interesting way to like go about introducing a new character, you know?
Yeah. It definitely feels like, hey, we're not replacing Susan. We're saving this other girl. What, are we supposed to just leave her behind? No, we have to bring her on board. She has to become a new companion. There's no other choice. We're not replacing Susan. Nick, what were your thoughts on this particular story?
You know, with small is apt. In hindsight, I have admiration for how intimate this story is and how like small scale it is. I enjoyed part 2 quite a bit more than part 1. I thought part 1 was a bit of a chore, but then it turned out to be a beneficial chore, like doing the dishes or taking out the trash, because I ended up being pretty engaged with how all these characters and this plot ended in the climax of part 2. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess a lot of this in part 1 was worth it, even though I wasn't really engaged by it. I liked Vicki in this story, but wasn't really anticipating her being a companion. I'm sure you both told me that, but I just wasn't thinking about that when watching the story. So at the time I was like, oh, I like how similar she is to Susan. It's like they have to reckon with this character who's a lot like Susan, but Susan's gone. So they get to kind of help her. And then it was like, welcome aboard, Vicki. I was like, wait, oh, that's what this was? I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. I think the story is like a nice sort of, I wish it was, I mean, they just didn't make these like this then, but like, I kind of think that this episode would have benefited from being like a Christmas special of some sort, like a just like a self-contained 1-part thing. I think that the story would have largely benefited from not being serialized in any way whatsoever. Because like, I totally agree with what Nick was saying. Is like the first episode is very much like not engaging. Like my favorite part of the first episode is like that moment where Ian and Barbara are talking shit and the doctor's like, just so you know, I can't hear you in here. That was the only part that like I was kind of engaged with, and the rest of it was like, okay. And I kept trying to like really focus because I knew that this was Vicki and I wanted to like, you know, really like pay attention to her introduction. But yeah, it was a tough one.
Have you never seen this before?
Yeah, I had.
Okay.
But like, you know, years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
I know this isn't what you mean by Christmas special entirely, but I just couldn't help but think the only thing that could make this episode more harrowing and sadder is it taking place like on Christmas Eve. And
yeah.
I'm picturing Vicki like whimpering as she's like slowly decorating the little Christmas tree that they have.
That would be incredible. Yeah. No, and then the rescue ship is not going to be coming until after Christmas.
No,
and
what did
that makes it really
Christmas?
sad. Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
I think that would have added a lot.
No, sad Christmas is a genre for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think like it's already only like a 50-minute episode, you know, like and if it had all been one episode, I feel like you could have like restructured it a bit and made the first half of it a little more compelling. But in any event, I think it's okay. It's just, you know, could be better. But you know, we've got the Romans to look forward to in the next round.
Hell yeah, we do.
Yeah, so you know, that's good.
I had the thought somewhere around part 2 when we were really just cooking. I was like, wow, I know we can say this for a lot of episodes, but this really feels like I am just dropping in on a normal day in these characters' lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like not even that big of an adventure. It's just kind of like a weird thing that happened to them.
It's true. Cass, you want to treat us to a walkthrough of part 1?
Yeah. So we open on this crashed spaceship on some planet that we later learn is named Dido. So we're introduced to Vicki and Bennett, who are the only survivors of this ship crew. Vicki is really excited because there's something showing up on like the radar screen. They're waiting for a rescue ship to come get them. She goes to tell Bennett that it's early, and he's like, no, the ship's not early. And she confirms that it's like they're still like, I don't know, like 3 days out. So the thing that the radar screen's picking up is the TARDIS. So we join Barbara and Ian and the doctor, who's asleep, and the TARDIS has landed. They don't know what to do about it.
He's very sleepy in this episode.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, he must have depression. Yes. Susan-less depression.
Yeah. I actually there's a part where he's like doing his I don't know, like landing checklist or whatever, for lack of a better term, and he's like, oh, Susan, go open the doors. And then like there's like a really awkward moment where they're like, oh, well, Susan's not here, and the doctor's like, oh, right. So they walk out of the TARDIS. They're in a cave. The doctor's like, I'm gonna go into the TARDIS, take a nap because I'm sleepy. I'm in my sleepy era. Barbara and Ian, you go out and explore. So they go out and explore. They meet this humanoid. It's like a very, very pointy creature. It kind of threatens them. The pointy creature tells Barbara and Ian to go get the doctor. And then there's Barbara is threatened by this pointy creature. She like falls off a cliff, and then there's a rock slide.
Yeah, he says no.
You can trust me.
Why are you scared? I am your friend. And
Be
then
not afraid.
he just like walks her to the edge of the cliff until she falls off.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, to help you with your mental image, it's not a perfect one-to-one, but he kind of reminded me of the voodoo character from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, okay.
Like he's wearing robes with pointy little mask-like things.
Yeah, he reminded me of like if the Shredder was cosplaying as an alien. Like he's just very pointy, metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stuff.
And
like,
Barbara's rightly intimidated, and he doesn't seem to appreciate that. Well, you later learn this guy's kind of an asshole.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And I feel like he just keeps getting closer to her and she's like backing away, not even because she's necessarily scared, but because she's like, those look pointy. Get those out of here, you know?
Personal space.
Yeah.
Not to give the game away, but it's really funny to think about the idea that this is how he killed everyone.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He just walks them to death.
Yeah.
So there's a rock slide, and it blocks the cave entrance. And honestly, my biggest complaint with this episode is, why didn't the Doctor and Ian just fly the TARDIS, like materialize the TARDIS out of the cave to go get Barbara? But instead, we have some like cave shenanigans where the Doctor and Ian are trying to find a way out. They're like pressed up against a cliff face. There's a precarious fall on the other side. There's I don't know how to describe it other than a shrimp dog. I am obsessed with this thing. There's like
makes me so sad.
Some kind of monster in the chasm, and there are.
He's not a monster. He is a good boy.
Yeah, he's a good boy, but we don't know that yet. So
big Grendel vibes, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of loathsome, kind of pathetic. Bold.
There's some booby traps that Ian and the Doctor are dealing with. And then back at the ship with Vicki, Vicki has found Barbara after she fell off a cliff, and she's like dragged Barbara to safety. And then this pointy creature who's named Koquillion. They said it like
Koquillion.
3 different ways. I don't know.
Yeah.
But his name's Koquillion, and like he's keeping Vicki and Bennett kind of hostage, or he's like protecting them from his people because his people destroyed the crew of the ship. But he doesn't know that Barbara's here with Vicki. Vicki kind of explains that like they're stuck here. The indigenous population like destroyed them.
Right.
And then when the Doctor and Ian are talking, the Doctor's confused because he's been here before, and the natives on the planet were very friendly. So he's kind of trying to figure out what the deal is here.
And then there's that added element of like Ian being convinced that he's going senile now that Susan is gone. So he's just like, what? No, they're nice. And he's just like, oh, you crazy old man. No, they're not.
Yeah, no, you alluded to it. There's this really funny scene where Ian and Barbara are outside the TARDIS store. It's almost like Edgar Wrighty a little bit, where Ian's like, we have to admit, Barbara. He's getting a bit like I can hear you.
Give me that rock. And he's like, what? Okay, here you go. Thank you. And he leaves.
But
They're
the
like,
episode,
see, what did he even want that rock for? Anyway.
I know he's. The episode ends with these like knives are coming out of the wall, like these very sharp spikes are coming out of the wall because Ian pulled on a stone ring and it like dislodged from the wall. It's very Indiana Jones, this. And they're slowly pushing him toward the cliff face and towards the scary shrimp dog monster. And that's how it ends.
Yep.
It's really, it makes me sad, but I love to think about the first Doctor, being incapable or unable to really vent or communicate his sadness and grief over saying goodbye to Susan. So he's just he's just taking depression naps without really knowing what's happening.
Oh,
I don't know what to think about anything right now.
Oh, it's very sad.
Miss that cool Gen Z granddaughter of mine.
Yeah, but I think our description of the plot of episode 1 just kind of really proves what Nick was saying, which is like episode 1 is kind of a slog,
tedious.
Yeah, pretty tedious. Episode 2 is much better, I would say.
You really didn't even walk over anything, Cass. Like you gave a kind of a bullet for bullet. Like that's what happens.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
Nice.
Not a lot there.
Okay, so I guess episode 2. The Doctor walks Ian through escaping the pointy spikes. And they continue on their way. Barbara meets Bennett, who is like, don't meddle with things you don't understand. We have a rescue ship coming. Like he's very suspect, this guy. But Vicki trusts him, so we have reason to trust him.
Yeah. He also keeps like waffling back and forth between being unable to move
to walk,
and telling
and then
people to leave him alone.
Yeah.
Walking on his own. You're like, what the hell's this guy's deal? Is this just like typical 1960s writing and acting, or is there something else going on?
So Vicki goes outside to kind of like forage stuff for dinner, and then Barbara sees the scary shrimp dog monster from the cave in the first episode, like kind of creeping up on Vicki. So Barbara, like no questions asked, just shoots this thing. And then Vicky's very sad because that's her friend Sandy. And I know that it's like meant to be like, oh, like this poor girl was stranded on this planet. She had no like friends. She had to make friends with a monster. But it's like, dude, Barbara just showed up out of nowhere, ate her food, and then shot her dog. And
the first animal Just like, yeah, like to look at it from Vicky's perspective, just like an animal was approaching her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, bang,
Yeah.
through the temples. And it really justifies her kind of distrust of Barbara for the rest of the story.
Yeah. I think Barbara killing Sandy
the shrimp dog.
Sandy the shrimp dog is probably, I mean, it's got to be the worst thing Barbara ever does as a character, right? Like, this is
unprovoked execution of a domesticated animal.
Yeah, right. Just out of like ignorance and
assumption, really.
Assumption, yeah, bigotry.
Monster. Well, well, then now I'm kind of like, well, think about the life that she's been living, you know?
I guess that's true, but like, man, I don't know. I guess that's why the Doctor is so like specific about like teaching his companions like morals about like, hey, don't judge every book by its cover, you know?
Remember that time
one time I had a companion
dog
that shot a dog.
Oh my god. So Vicky's very sad about this. And then the Doctor and Ian show up, and Barbara is trying to explain why Vicky is crying. The Doctor comforts her. They have like they instantly bond, which I kind of like. It's really sweet. So she kind of explains to the Doctor and Ian what's going on about like the rescue ship and like Bennett and this dude named Koquillion who's like threatening them. So the Doctor's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go talk to your friend Bennett. You wait here. Maybe try to understand that Barbara didn't realize what she was doing. She's cool. You'll like her. And Vicky's like, okay. So she's her jury's out on her opinion of Barbara. So the Doctor goes into Bennett's room. Bennett says, you can't come in. The door is like jammed shut, so the Doctor just like busts it open. And the room is empty, and he finds a bunch of tape recordings, and like there's like not cameras, but there's like microphones set up so that like he can hear the conversation out in the other room between Barbara and Ian and Vicky. And then there's like a trap door in the floor of this room. So the Doctor goes down to explore. Later, Barbara, Ian, and Vicky go in to look for the Doctor and Bennett and don't find either of them. And the Doctor...
Is this before or after Ian laughing because Vicky calls Barbara 550 years old?
This is... That's after, like, the Doctor stuff is after. Like, their conversation is happening while the Doctor's, like, snooping.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing, because it's the most, like, naturalistic this early run of the show ever gets, because he's, like, laughing, and she's, like, completely shook and offended at the idea of being 550 years old, which is so funny. And he's laughing because, like, he knows it's going to bother her, despite the fact that, like, she's also calling him that, but like it doesn't bother him because he knows, he understands like what she means. But it's just, I don't know, the whole dynamic of those three in that scene was really great. I thought
he's laughing because he knows Barbara so well at this point that he knows that just shook her and did second.
Yeah, right. And he's probably also laughing where he's like, "That's what you get for killing her dog."
Yeah, they explain that like they're time travelers, and Vicky doesn't believe them.
She was like, "There's no time travel in 1964."
Right?
He's like,
don't know anything.
Right. The Doctor's an alien. That's why. And she's like, "What?"
That part also felt very fun. The way that she was so tickled at the idea of this old guy that she just met being a time traveler, that makes her laugh. And that makes them laugh because they know it's true. And then the Doctor can, again, hear all of this. And he's like, silly girl, silly girl. Silly girl. Okay, was anyone getting Yoda vibes from him in this episode, like more than usual?
Sure.
A
Yeah.
lot of mms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's kind of where he morphs into now that Susan is gone. He sort of becomes like a Yoda type character, I would say. It's kind of like where he settles.
Do you either of you think he relaxes maybe a little now that his granddaughter is out of the TARDIS?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's
so.
probably accurate. It's also worth noting, I guess, behind the scenes that like Maureen O'Brien had like a really strong relationship with her grandfather, who I believe had recently passed, and he was also like in the war. He was like a soldier, and much like William Hartnell, and William Hartnell would like have spells where he would be very angry, he would get very agitated, and having worked with her grandfather, she knew how to like calm him down, and so she had this very calming presence on William Hartnell, and so they just like kind of bonded immediately because of that. And so I'm also wondering if there's an element of that he's just like generally less agitated on set than he used to be. Because he just really likes Maureen O'Brien, I guess. So
That's really sweet. I think that makes their like first interaction like because it feels like like the chemistry they have together, like the camaraderie they have together, like feels genuine.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
No, please.
Oh no, go ahead.
I had this thought. I had this thought towards the end of the episode, so I was going to save it. But a thought that I had with Vicki and the Doctor with them meeting is like, part of another wish fulfillment-y kind of fantasy part of Doctor Who is that I kind of like and have liked for a while is the idea of like being an older person and still making new friends.
Mm-hmm.
And like meeting new exciting people that like having you around, and even going into like Graham years and years later, that is always kind of like a fun, these characters, like the idea that you're not done meeting people as you get older is kind of a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, very true.
So the Doctor goes through this trap door in the ship, and it lands him in like this underground, like temple, like building, and he basically just like Koquillion shows up, and the Doctor, basically it's Bennett. Like Bennett has been pretending to be this alien named Koquillion, because he murdered someone aboard the ship before the ship crashed, and then the ship crashed, so they hadn't had a chance to like get it down in the logs or like report it to the authorities on Earth. So the people on the planet, like the people, the natives on the planet, they like invited the entire ship to have like a banquet because they actually were nice, friendly people. And then Bennett basically like aims the ship's explosives at the area and like blows everything up. So like the crew of the ship and the entire like population of the planet, because there's only like 100 people or something, die because he's trying to get away with murder. And Vicki doesn't know, so he's been like gaslighting her into believing that like that he saved her, and like the natives on the planet are evil and deserve to die, so that when they get rescued, like she can like vouch for him, and then he like walks free. So
I think this is the most Scooby-Doo that Doctor Who has ever been. Ever.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo also kind of reminded me, Cass, of like One Piece early on, where they meet the girl that Usopp likes, that like her butler has been lying to her and like making her sick. Just like they found this poor innocent girl that's been gaslit by this evil guardian figure, and
Yeah.
like they rescue her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. And Vicki says that she was 6, but like, did like Bennett like poison her so that she would like stay behind, or was she like actually sick? Like when he like blew up everybody.
Oh, I don't know.
No.
I guess you could assume.
It's really
that
weird.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe he did.
It's really creepy.
Yeah. He's a
So
creep.
yes, he tells all this to the doctor. They like struggle, which is like I'm surprised because like this is like the most like actiony I think the first Doctor has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought that they were like, because they're not wearing any like alien makeup. They're just like in these like weird like robes, I guess. But
Just two handsome chaps.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the Collets from like the Daleks. It's just like 2 blonde guys show up and they don't speak and they just like walk menacingly towards Bennett, and then their menacing walking gets him to fall off a cliff just like Barbara did, but he dies instead. So yeah. So then the doctor like passes out and he wakes up in the TARDIS. Ian and Barbara like found him and he kind of explains what's going on. And then the doctor invites Vicki to join them because she's essentially an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And yeah, I don't know. So like Barbara and Ian are like concerned and the doctor's like, no, it's fine. Like we all agree that like Vicki can join. And then Vicki joins them.
Yeah. And her reaction to the TARDIS is like, it's huge. And I was like, yeah, because you were like living in an RV. Like,
right?
Your spaceship was so small.
I can't find the way to package this joke, but the pieces are there where like, this is very Annie, but at least like Annie got to keep her dog named Sandy.
No.
R.I.P. Sandy.
R.I.P. Sandy.
Oh.
MVP of the episode for sure.
Yeah.
Might be one of the worst things any companion has ever done on this show.
Well, like, yeah, there's really no modern equivalent. Like Clara never just like pops one in a dog that belongs to a kid that she meets.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the doctor like teaches them like, hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
I know it looks like a booger monster, but it's not so bad.
Right?
Speaking of like, translating into the modern show, it would be so great. It's such a fun writing parachute to have the doctor just like pass out, wake up back on the TARDIS and have the companion be like, oh yeah, after you passed out, all of this stuff got resolved, but you were passed out. So it just, it just kind of happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to the Romans on our next season of Long Way Around, and getting to know Vicki a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was just 2 episodes, and that was the whole thing.
I forgot it ended the way it does. They like materialize somewhere else on a hill, but then the TARDIS is not parked correctly.
It gets Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like tumble off down the hill.
Yeah. Oh, also those 2 guys come into the space RV and like.
Oh, they wreck the comms.
Yeah, they wreck the comms because the rescue ship is still on its way, and they're like, nope.
No more humans.
Scott, calling it a space RV just really adds to this fucking like Killer Joe, like Southern boilerplate like drama of like this guy bedridden psychologically gaslighting this girl into like caring for him while also pretending to be also kind of like The Village,
Yeah.
Yeah, very The Village also, definitely. So yeah, that's the rescue. They rescued her.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. Well, there's not much there's nothing else to really talk about. Short episode this week. So apologies for that, everyone. But looking forward to the rest of our new season of Long Way Around. Next week, we'll be talking about The Web of Fear, Second Doctor story. Classic Second Doctor story. For the Third Doctor, we'll be introduced to the Sea Devils, their first story, which is exciting. Then for the Fourth Doctor, we have The Mask of Mandragora, which for the life of me, I cannot remember a thing about.
I don't remember anything about that either. That's exciting.
No. Yeah, don't remember anything about that one.
I have no memory of this place.
Then for the Fifth Doctor, we wrap up our Black Guardian trilogy with Enlightenment.
Yes.
The best of the three.
Oh, hell yeah.
Very much looking forward to talking about that one.
That horrible prick. What's his name?
Turlo?
Turlo, yeah.
Turlo, yeah. Turlo and a space pirate ship and space gods, cosmic space gods. All kinds of cool stuff in Enlightenment. So very much looking forward to that one. Then with the Sixth Doctor, we are being introduced to yet another new companion. This being the season of new companions, apparently, on the long way around. We'll be introduced to Evelyn Smythe, who is my favorite Sixth Doctor companion. Very much looking forward to that with the Marian conspiracy. Should be a fun time. I'm really excited for Nick to meet Evelyn, who is essentially like what if Professor McGonagall was traveling with the Sixth Doctor. Wow. It's the best. So that's coming up. Then we're wrapping up our TV era for the Seventh Doctor with the final classic Who story ever produced, Survival.
Oh boy.
And
still funny.
It's cat people.
Cat people.
So
I'm really sad. I love McCoy.
I know. Well, you're going to get to watch him walk off into the sunset before we transition him to Big Finish audio as well. Next, on the next round. Then we have, for the Eighth Doctor, we're talking about Scherzo, the one and only episode set in the Divergent universe that we're going to be talking about because it's the best one by a country mile. And it's really great use of the format, the audio format. I'm excited for both of you guys to hear this one because I think you're going to love it. And then next season, we're going to be skipping a whole lot of stuff. But I'll fill everybody in on what they missed, and it's not much. Divergent Universe, bad. So then in New Who, we're doing Smith and Jones, introducing Martha and Series 3 to the 10th Doctor. Over on the 11th Doctor, we've got the classic 6th series starter, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. Maybe the peak of Doctor Who for me was like that story. And then it was like, that was like the tippy top of my fandom, I think, between that and The Doctor's Wife coming in a few seasons. But like that was kind of, woof, that was a big deal. Then wrapping it all up this season with The Caretaker from the 12th Doctor. No, we are not starting the 13th Doctor this round. We're going to be doing that on the next round. We'll be kicking off that new era to the adding the 13th Doctor to the long way around next season in 2025. Because, you know, it seemed right to start the 13th Doctor on the 13th season of Long Way Around. So
are we on 13? Oh, wow.
We will next year. We're on 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. So yeah. It should be a pretty solid season of the show. Lots of fun stories to talk about. I'm looking forward to all of those. Other than Enlightenment, Cass, what are you most looking forward to?
I really love the Sea Devils, even though it's like a 6-parter, because my favorite Third Doctor moment is in that one.
Ho.
So excited about that. Yeah.
Nick, you're only fully aware of a few of these. Based on
like
descriptions and things, what are you most looking forward to?
You know, like Cass, looking forward to seeing the Sea Devils. Really hyped about their spinoff, Agony and Rot, or whatever it's called. What's it called?
The war between the land and the sea, I think.
The war between the land of the sea. It's also my favorite
I like
Decemberist
whatever
album.
the hell you just pitched, though. That
Yeah,
sounds
that's good.
cool.
Agony and Rot.
That was way more poetic.
That's awesome.
And yeah, looking forward to meeting a lot of new companions too.
Yeah, lots of new companions this season. In fact, you could even say in The Caretaker, we get the introduction of a new technical companion. One of those
can't wait.
deals. Yeah. So so we'll be talking about all of that this round on Long Way Around. But next week, The Web of Fear and the Second Doctor. We'll talk to you then. Bye, everybody.
Bye.